All right, everyone, it's time for another And Now for Something Horrible. This is not an insect related one, but it is kind of the same general creepy crawly sort of thing. This creature here is called Parmarion martensi. It is a semi slug, which you may not have heard of those before. This is kind of a creature that is halfway between a slug and a snail, and they have evolved multiple times across multiple groups of mollusks or multiple groups of gastropods, which are the slugs and snails. So they're not necessarily all related, although they do frequently look similar. Um, what you have is a slug-like body, and then you have this kind of barely detectable shell frequently. It's it covers this visceral sac on their back, but it's extremely thin. It's about the size of your thumbnail, and it doesn't offer great protection. But basically, these creatures are in the process of losing their shell and becoming fully slugified. Sometimes in the literature, you'll see the process called slugification, and this is what it's referring to, the gradual loss of the shell. So in biology, the snail is the more primitive of the gastropods, and the slug is the more highly evolved. They've generally lost the reason to have their shell. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is because Parmarion martensi is one of numerous mollusks, numerous gastropods, which carry a nematode parasite. Is it nematode or trematode? I can't quite remember. A worm parasite which is capable of infecting humans and causing enormous amounts of damage to your brain. So I frequently refer to these gastropods when I was working with them as the brain slugs because they were slugs that carry parasites that would destroy your brain. And these guys aren't the only ones, although this is a group that I did particularly work with, and it is highly invasive. This is a group of mollusks. This Parmarion group is from Southeast Asia, usually in the tropics, that has been accidentally imported into the United States and U.S. territories multiple times, usually through something like the orchid trade. How do you say this? People who are orchid fanatics, which there's actually quite a few, are not above the black market buying and selling of endangered species of orchids. And frequently, when they do this, it will result in contaminated, kind of jungle harvested orchids coming into the US, and they're frequently contaminated with all sorts of pests. And this is one of the things that it will be contaminated with. Generally, snails and slugs will lay their eggs in soil, so if you're bringing soil contaminated things into the country, there's a pretty high risk that they will be infested with these sorts of things. But these are not the only thing which carry these brain-eating worm parasites. There's a number of mollusks that will do this. So the semi-slugs are down here. Let me change colors here so you can see a little better. So down here you have semi-slugs, but you also have up here, this is really common. These are also in the US that come from the tropics. They're called veronicellids. They're a type of slug which is extremely large. They can grow several inches long and they get really, really fat. They're kind of like looking at someone's tongue if you just like ripped it out of their mouth. They're extremely large, extremely muscular, but they also frequently carry this parasite. And they will, you don't have to like eat these to get the parasite. You can get these parasites, these worm parasites, just from touching these animals. Or from like food contamination. If you have a garden and these mollusks are crawling all over your food and you don't wash it and you eat the produce raw or something like that, you can ingest these parasites. The parasites are frequently secreted from the slime that these slugs produce. They have numerous mucus glands on the sides of their body, which will produce a slime that is infested or contaminated with this parasite. So this parasite is called Angiostrongylus. There's two species that are of concern, Angiostrongylus cantonensis and Angiostrongylus costarricensis. Costarricensis is most often associated with Central and South America, but both of these parasites are now in the Western Hemisphere. Both of them are in the United States. And it's this worm parasite. They are capable of burrowing either through your skin, occasionally, or through contamination or infection through ingestion. And if you go to the CDC website, you can see kind of how this works. The natural host cycle is between rodents and snails. The rodent eats the snail, gets infected. Then the rodent infects the snail, usually through contaminated feces that the snail is exposed to. But generally through produce or some sort of like hand contamination from handling snails and slugs, humans will pick up this parasite. The parasite will enter either through the digestive tract, through the skin, or through the digestive tract into the bloodstream, and then go throughout the body. It can go, basically, going through the body this way means that this parasite can embed itself into any tissue, but it will frequently embed itself into the spinal cord, the brain, or the eyes, where it will eat holes in the tissue. So frequently people with this infection, and this infection has been showing up quite a bit in Hawaii and in Puerto Rico, although there's threats of it in like Texas and Florida. They will frequently describe issues of severe headaches, extremely severe headaches. As the disease progresses, they may become blind because it will eat their optic nerve. It will eat their nerves running off their spine, so they can become paralyzed, or it can kill them outright. It is very, very painful. It will also embed itself generally into things like the liver or the muscle tissue and cause severe problems there. Generally speaking, there is no treatment for this infection, and it's just up to your body to kind of get rid of it on its own or succumb to it. So you can see it here. Larvae occasionally migrate to the eyes or lungs. It's a very, very severe problem for people that get this. There have been hundreds and hundreds of cases of this infection coming from mollusks, particularly this Parmarion mollusk in Hawaii. This mollusk is now established throughout the Caribbean and parts of Central and South America, and it's at constant risk of entering into the continental United States. If it's not already here, it may well be. This disease is also associated with giant African snails, which have been established repeatedly in Florida, especially around Miami. Generally, these importations are either associated with the pet trade or with people who are importing these mollusks for religious purposes. There's a number of santeros who will consume them raw. There have been a number of children who have died from this practice. So now you know about the horrors of snails and slugs. So if you are handling them, like if you're a gardener or whatever, always wash your hands after gardening, and also always wash your produce so as to avoid infection. Talk to you guys later. Bye.